The alarm buzzed at 4:45 a.m., same as every morning for the past 3 years. Emma Reeves rolled out of her narrow dorm bed, feet hitting the cold tile floor with practiced precision. Another day at Westfield University Library. Another day of invisible work that kept the world's premier research institution running smoothly. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She dressed in the same pressed outfit, tied her auburn hair back in the same practical bun, and grabbed her thermos of black coffee. The walk to the library took exactly 7 minutes. She timed it countless times, finding comfort in the predictability. The Westfield University Library was a massive stone structure that housed one of the world's most impressive collections of rare manuscripts and historical documents. While the glamorous lecture halls and research centers got all the attention, this was where the real academic work happened. Cataloging systems, preservation schedules, researcher access, collection inventories, the thousands of details that meant the difference between scholarly success and catastrophic failure. Emma's desk sat in the back corner of the Special Collections Department, deliberately chosen for its anonymity. No windows, no foot traffic, just a desk, computer, and filing cabinets filled with forms that most people never saw. She preferred it that way. The less attention, the better. "Morning, Emma," called Sophia Martinez from the desk over. Sophia was 24, fresh out of library science school, still excited about academic life. She'd been trying to crack Emma's professional shell for months with little success. "Good morning," Emma replied politely, settling into her chair. She powered up her computer and pulled up the day's assignments. 3 manuscript collections needed cataloging. 2 visiting scholars required research assistance, and 14 rare book requests waited for processing. The work was methodical, requiring attention to detail, but little creativity. Perfect for someone who wanted to disappear. Emma had mastered the art of being competent but unremarkable, efficient enough to avoid scrutiny, invisible enough to be forgotten. Around 8 a.m., the morning staff meeting began in the conference room. Emma took her usual seat in the back, notepad ready. Dr. Lawrence Bennett, the library director, droned through collection updates and scheduling changes. She copied down relevant information, made appropriate notes, and said nothing. But as Bennett spoke, Emma's attention drifted to the window overlooking the university's shooting range. A line of trainees was practicing on the targets, their movements creating familiar patterns she recognized all too well. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Her fingers unconsciously traced the edge of her notepad as she watched them adjust their stances with practiced precision. For just a moment, muscle memory flickered through her hands. The feel of a weapon grip, the slight vibration of recoil, the rush of adrenaline during high-stakes operations. She caught herself and forced her attention back to Bennett's presentation. "Reeves?" Bennett said suddenly. "You're handling the classified document restoration project, correct?" "Yes, sir. Implementation begins Monday," she replied. "Good. Make sure there are no conflicts with the visiting scholar schedule. We can't afford any delays." Emma nodded, making a note she didn't need. She'd already cross-referenced every assignment against the academic calendar twice. Details like that were why she'd survived 3 years in this job without making waves. The meeting ended and personnel filed out, discussing their various responsibilities. Emma lingered, pretending to organize her notes while the room emptied. Through the window, she could see training instructors performing safety demonstrations with the new students. The sight stirred something deep in her chest, a familiar ache she'd learned to suppress. Back at her desk, Emma dove into the manuscript restoration spreadsheet. Names, dates, condition assessments, preservation techniques, all the moving pieces that kept academic operations running. She knew most of these researchers by reputation, had processed their paperwork, tracked their publication records, managed their academic careers from the administrative side. Professor Derek Mason, hotshot fresh from Oxford, eager to prove himself. Dr. Lisa Park, veteran of 3 archaeological expeditions, steady and reliable. Thomas Rodriguez, Sophia's older brother, natural historian with good instincts. all of them living the life she'd once known. Her phone rang, interrupting the familiar spiral of regret. Special Collections, Emma Reeves speaking. Emma, it's Michael Henderson down in Rare Books. We've got a problem with the Haverton manuscript. The assigned preservation specialist called in sick, but the diplomatic delegation is scheduled to view it tomorrow. Can you find us a replacement? Emma's hand tightened on the phone. The Haverton manuscript. The medieval text she'd read about in classified briefings. Advanced military strategies, superior tactical insights, cutting-edge systems for its time. The kind of historical document that represented everything she'd lost. I'll check the roster and get back to you, she said evenly. After hanging up, Emma stared at her computer screen for a long moment. The preservation specialist database was open, showing available personnel, but her mind wasn't on scheduling. It was on the historical specifications she'd memorized about the Haverton manuscript, the tactical data she'd studied late at night when insomnia kept her awake. She shook her head and returned to work. That life was over. She'd made her choice 3 years ago when everything fell apart. Now she was just Emma Reeves, library specialist, keeper of schedules and forms. But late that afternoon, as another group of security trainees marched past her window, Emma allowed herself one brief moment of longing. Her eyes tracked their movement until they disappeared around the corner, carrying trainees toward adventures she could only remember. The ache in her chest deepened, but she pushed it down like always. Some dreams were meant to stay buried. The Haverton manuscript replacement specialist issue lingered in Emma's mind through the weekend. By Monday morning, she'd identified 3 qualified candidates, but something nagged at her about the whole situation. The manuscript's historical significance was well known among scholars. Why was Rare Books calling Special Collections directly instead of going through proper channels? Her question was answered during the weekly staff meeting when Dr. Bennett dropped a bombshell. Effective immediately, all Rare manuscript operations will be coordinated through this office, Bennett announced. That includes scheduling specialist assignments and preservation coordination for the Haverton manuscript program. Dr. Patricia Whitman, the deputy library director, raised her hand. Sir, shouldn't that fall under Rare Books? We don't typically handle manuscript preservation assignments. Bennett's expression darkened. The board has decided that Special Collections will oversee all non-standard preservation activities. Questions? The room fell silent, but Emma caught the meaningful glance Bennett shot in her direction. This wasn't about efficiency. This was about control. Someone wanted to keep the manuscript program under tight administrative oversight, away from the traditional Rare Books chain of command. After the meeting, Emma returned to her desk to find a thick folder marked Classified Haverton Manuscript Program waiting for her. Inside were technical specifications, preservation schedules, and specialist evaluation criteria. Her pulse quickened as she read through the historical data. The Haverton manuscript wasn't just an ancient text. It was revolutionary. Military strategies beyond anything currently understood from that time period. Tactical insights that defied conventional historical understanding. Weapon systems that could engage multiple enemies simultaneously. This was the future of historical military research, and somehow she'd been put in charge of managing it. Heavy reading? Sophia's voice made Emma look up. Her desk neighbor was holding 2 cups of coffee, offering one with a smile. Just new assignments, Emma replied carefully, accepting the coffee. Thank you, Sophia lingered, glancing at the classified folder. Must be important stuff. You've been staring at those papers for 2 hours. Emma closed the folder smoothly. Administrative details, nothing exciting. But Sophia's observant eyes had caught something. You know, Emma, I've worked here for 8 months, and I've never seen you look at paperwork the way you were just looking at that file, like you actually cared about what was inside. The comment hit closer to home than Emma expected. She'd built her entire identity around professional detachment, but apparently her mask had slipped. I take all my assignments seriously. I'm sure you do. But this was different. Sophia sat on the edge of Emma's desk. Can I ask you something? What did you do before library science? The question hung in the air like a live grenade. Emma had fielded variations of it for years, always with the same vague response about various academic positions. But Sophia's directness was harder to deflect. I worked in different areas, Emma said finally. That's not really an answer, is it? Sophia's voice was gentle, but persistent. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but you're not like the other library specialists. You understand things they don't. When researchers complain about scheduling conflicts, you fix them in ways that make perfect sense, but nobody else thought of. When preservation reports equipment issues, you ask questions that show you actually understand the systems." Emma felt exposed, like Sophia had peeled back layers of carefully constructed anonymity. "I've been here a long time. You learn things. Maybe. Or maybe you learn things somewhere else first." Sophia stood up, preparing to return to her desk. "Either way, I think you're wasting your talents pushing papers." That afternoon, Emma found herself in the rare books vault, ostensibly checking on Haverton manuscript preservation schedules, but really just needing to see the document up close. The manuscript sat under protective glass, ancient and predatory, like knowledge frozen in time. Beautiful piece, isn't it? Emma turned to find Chief Curator Frank Morrison, a 30-year veteran who ran the Experimental Preservation Division. She'd worked with him on scheduling issues, but had never seen him away from his desk. "Impressive specifications," Emma replied neutrally. Morrison studied her face. "You know, I've been watching how you handle the Haverton paperwork. Most library specialists treat manuscripts like inventory items. You handle the files like you understand what these documents actually contain." Another probing comment. Another person seeing through her facade. Emma felt like she was walking a tightrope, one wrong step away from exposure. "I try to understand the materials I'm scheduling," she said. "Fair enough." Morrison walked closer to the Haverton manuscript, running his hand along the protective case. "This document's different from anything we've worked on. The tactical insights are so advanced, it's almost like the author was reading the enemy's mind. Takes a special kind of analyst to handle that level of integration." Emma found herself studying the text, despite her better judgment. The diagrams were familiar, yet exotic. Traditional battlefield formations augmented with sophisticated countermeasures and strategic deployments. Her hands unconsciously mimicked the tactical positions, muscle memory surfacing unbidden. "You seem to know your way around military tactics," Morrison observed quietly. The comment snapped Emma back to reality. She dropped her hands, stepping away from the manuscript. "I should get back to my office. Preservation schedules won't update themselves." But as she walked away, she felt Morrison's knowing gaze following her. Another crack in her carefully maintained cover. Another person beginning to suspect that the quiet library specialist might be more than she appeared. That evening, alone in her apartment, Emma pulled out a locked box from under her bed. Inside were medals, commendations, and a single photograph, her old tactical response team standing beside their equipment after a successful mission. Young faces, proud smiles, the confidence that came from knowing you were among the best operatives in the world. She traced the faces with her finger, remembering names and stories. Most had moved on to other assignments, other commands. A few had left the service entirely. One, her teammate during the incident that ended everything, had died in a training accident 3 years ago. Emma closed the box and locked it away again. Some memories were too dangerous to revisit, some identities too painful to remember. She was Emma Reeves, library specialist, invisible administrator. But as she lay in bed listening to the distant sound of campus security vehicles, Sophia's words echoed in her mind. "You're wasting your talents pushing papers." Maybe she was. But safety was more important than fulfillment, and anonymity was safer than recognition. She'd learned that lesson 3 years ago when her world imploded. The problem was, people were starting to notice her again. And in her experience, being noticed never ended well. Tuesday morning brought the first real test of Emma's new position overseeing Haverton manuscript operations. She arrived at her desk to find an urgent message from Dr. Bennett. The preservation assessment scheduled for that afternoon had been moved up to 9 a.m. due to changing security concerns. The problem was immediate and obvious. The replacement specialist she'd assigned was Dr. Marcus Cole, and he was currently in the hospital with pneumonia. With less than 3 hours' notice, she needed to find another qualified specialist from an extremely short list. Emma pulled up the classified roster of scholars cleared for the manuscript. Only 7 names appeared, and she quickly eliminated 5 due to scheduling conflicts or health issues. That left Professor Derek Mason and Dr. Lisa Park. She tried Mason first, But his department was in the middle of a critical research presentation. Park was available technically, but Emma knew from her personnel files that the major had a pregnant wife due any day. Hardly the time to volunteer for high-security preservation work. Emma stared at her computer screen, feeling the familiar weight of impossible decisions. In her old life, she would have simply taken the assignment herself. The Haverton manuscript specifications were burned into her memory. Its historical contexts, familiar from months of studying technical documentation, she was probably more qualified than anyone on the approved list, but that wasn't her life anymore. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Special collections. Emma Reeves. Emma, it's Dr. Bennett. Please tell me you found a specialist for the Haverton assessment. I'm working on it, sir. The available candidates are limited due to the short notice. Work faster. The National Security Advisor is arriving specifically to observe this assessment. If we have to cancel, it reflects poorly on the entire library division. The implied threat was clear. Emma's position, carefully maintained for 3 years, suddenly felt precarious. Understood, sir. I'll have an answer within the hour. After hanging up, Emma leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. The smart play was to recommend canceling the assessment. Security protocols existed for good reasons, and rushing to find replacement specialists violated every principle of sound document management. But academic careers were built on making the impossible happen, and her career, such as it was, depended on solving problems quietly and efficiently. Rough morning? Sophia's voice brought Emma back to the present. Scheduling conflict. Nothing I can't handle. Sophia perched on the edge of Emma's desk again, a habit that was becoming more frequent. The Haverton assessment. I heard about the specialist situation through the grapevine. Emma looked up sharply. That's classified information. Relax. I'm not asking for details, but I do know you're under pressure to find a replacement specialist, and I know the approved list is very short. Sophia paused, studying Emma's face. I also know you've been studying those technical manuals like your life depends on understanding every detail. It's my job to understand the materials I schedule. Is it? Because most library specialists don't memorize military specifications and tactical data. Most library specialists don't instinctively know which scholars are best suited for specific manuscripts. Most library specialists don't look at ancient texts like they're seeing old friends. Emma felt the walls closing in. Sophia was too observant, asking too many questions, getting too close to truths that needed to stay buried. I don't know what you're implying, Emma said carefully. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating it directly. Sophia leaned closer. You're not really a library specialist, are you? At least you weren't always one. The accusation hung between them like a challenge. Emma had two choices: maintain her cover with a convincing denial or trust someone for the first time in 3 years. Before she could respond, her phone rang again. Special collections, Emma Reeves. Emma, it's Frank Morrison in Rare Books. I just heard about the specialist situation. Listen, I've got a suggestion, but you're not going to like it. I'm listening. What if we postpone the assessment? I know the National Security Advisor is coming, but security has to be the priority. We can't risk a classified manuscript with an unprepared specialist. It was the smart recommendation, the safe choice, the decision that protected everyone involved. Emma opened her mouth to agree and caught Sophia's knowing look. Chief Morrison, what would it take to get someone up to speed on the Haverton systems in 3 hours? Quote, honestly, it would take someone who already understands advanced tactical analysis, preferably with field experience. The historical context is intuitive for experienced analysts, but overwhelming for rookies. We'd need someone with the right background. What kind of background? Tactical operations experience, preferably in multiple threat environments. Advanced training in counter-terrorism systems. Demonstrated ability to adapt quickly to new scenarios. Morrison paused. Basically, we'd need someone like the old Phantom. Emma's blood turned to ice. Phantom. Her old call sign. Her old identity. Her old life. The name that had once struck fear into enemy operatives and inspired confidence in allies. Phantom? She managed to say. Before your time, probably. Legendary analyst from the early 2010s. Disappeared after some kind of incident. Classified stuff. But she was exactly the kind of specialist who could handle the Haverton on short notice. Sophia was staring at Emma intently, pieces clicking together in her sharp mind. Emma felt exposed, vulnerable, like standing naked in the middle of the campus. I'll see what I can do about finding a specialist, Emma said, ending the call. Phantom, Sophia said quietly. That's an interesting call sign. Emma said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. You know what I think? Sophia continued. I think you're exactly the kind of specialist Chief Morrison was describing. I think you've been hiding in plain sight for 3 years, pushing papers and managing schedules when you should be doing fieldwork. The truth was out, or at least part of it. Emma felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, one step away from falling back into a life she'd tried to leave behind. Even if that were true, Emma said slowly, it wouldn't matter. I'm not qualified for classified manuscripts. Are you sure about that? Sophia pulled out her phone, accessing university personnel records. Because according to the system, Emma Reeves has current security clearance and valid credentials for classified operations. Emma's heart stopped. She'd assumed her credentials had been revoked years ago, another casualty of her fall from grace. But university bureaucracy was notoriously slow, and apparently some paperwork had been overlooked. That's impossible, she whispered. Is it? Or did someone make sure you stayed qualified just in case? Sophia's expression was serious now. Emma, I don't know what happened to you, but I can see it eating you alive. You're wasting away at this desk when you could be doing something that matters. The weight of 3 years of suppressed identity crashed down on Emma all at once. She was Phantom, the analyst who'd saved hundreds of lives, who'd faced impossible odds and won, who'd been betrayed by politics and buried by bureaucracy. But she was also Emma Reeves, quiet administrator, keeper of secrets, guardian of her own safety. The choice was coming whether she wanted it or not. In less than 2 hours, she would have to decide who she really was. The call came at 8:30 a.m., 30 minutes before the scheduled Haverton manuscript assessment. Emma was still staring at her computer screen, paralyzed by the impossible choice between safety and duty, when her phone rang with an emergency tone. Emma Reeves, this is campus security. We have a developing situation. Motion sensors have detected multiple intruders entering through the library skylights. They're armed and using tactical movements. They're not responding to security calls and have breached the restricted areas. Emma's blood chilled. How many intruders? 12 confirmed contacts, ma'am. They're maintaining tactical formation and have disabled our communications. University president has declared a campus emergency. All personnel are to evacuate immediately. Quote, the line went dead. Around her, alarms began blaring as the library shifted into emergency protocols. Red lights flashed and the PA system crackled to life. All personnel, this is not a drill. Evacuate the building immediately. Emma stood frozen as chaos erupted around her. Sophia was at her elbow, face pale with fear. 12 armed intruders? Who would attack a university library? But Emma's mind was already analyzing the tactical situation. 12 operators in tactical formation, disabling communications, approaching through the skylights. It was a professional military assault, not terrorists or criminals. Someone with advanced training and experienced operators had decided to strike at Westfield University Library. She grabbed her security badge and ran toward the security center, Sophia close behind. The corridors were filled with personnel moving toward emergency exits. But something was wrong. Too many key people were missing. Security officers, department heads, senior administrators. In the security center, chaos reigned. Dr. Bennett was shouting into multiple phones, while security operators tracked the incoming threats. The central display showed 12 red contacts moving through the library's upper levels. Where are our response teams? Bennett demanded. Sir, most of Alpha Team is at a training exercise, responded Dr. Whitman. Beta Team is on administrative leave. We have 3 operational officers, but only 2 qualified responders on site. 2 responders against 12 attackers. Emma felt the familiar surge of tactical awareness, her mind automatically calculating odds, assessing options, planning responses. The old phantom was stirring, 3 years of suppressed instincts awakening. "Sir," called out the security operator. The contacts have separated into 3 groups. 2 groups of 4 are flanking our position, while the main group of 4 is coming straight for the rare books vault. Classic pincer movement. Emma stepped closer to the display, studying the attack pattern. It was textbook, professional, exactly what she would have done in their position. These weren't amateurs. They were experienced combat operators executing a coordinated assault. "ETA to rare books?" Bennett asked. 8 minutes, sir." Bennett grabbed his radio. "All available security to the rare books section immediately. We need everything in position now." But Emma knew the math. 2 officers against 12 attackers meant certain defeat. The library's defenses would be overwhelmed. Personnel would be injured. Manuscripts would be destroyed. Unless... She looked at the security display again, noting details others had missed. The attack formation was perfect for engaging conventional security, but it had weaknesses. The lead group was slightly ahead of the flanking elements, creating a gap that an experienced operator could exploit. The jammers were focused on communication frequencies, leaving surveillance and targeting systems partially clear. Most importantly, the attackers weren't expecting significant resistance. They'd planned for a quick strike against a lightly defended target, not a fight. "Captain Reeves?" Bennett spotted her in the crowd. "What are you doing here? Library personnel should be evacuating." "Sir, request permission to assist with security coordination. We don't need schedules right now, Captain. We need officers in position." Emma took a deep breath, crossing a line she'd avoided for 3 years. "Sir, I'm qualified for tactical operations." Bennett stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. "You're a library specialist." "Check my record, sir. Security status current. Clearance is valid. Combat experience extensive." Dr. Whitman was already pulling up Emma's personnel file on her tablet. Her eyes widened as she read. "Sir, Captain Reeves has current Type 1 security status and is cleared for all classified operations. Combat experience includes..." "My God, she's got over 200 missions." "That's impossible," Bennett said. "She's been pushing papers for 3 years." "Sir," Emma said quietly, "my previous assignments are classified, but I'm qualified to coordinate a defense, and right now you need every trained person you can get." The security center fell silent, except for the steady beeping of intruder alerts. Everyone was staring at the quiet library specialist who just claimed she could run tactical operations. Bennett studied her face, seeing something he'd missed for years. "What's your call sign, Captain?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Emma felt 3 years of careful anonymity crumbling, but with 12 armed intruders bearing down on the library, hiding was no longer an option. "Phantom, sir." The reaction was immediate. Morrison, who'd arrived from rare books, sucked in a sharp breath. Several of the younger officers looked confused, but the veterans recognized the name. "Jesus Christ," whispered Dr. Whitman. "Phantom, you're the operative from the embassy crisis, the one who disappeared." Bennett finished. "Captain, if you're who you claim to be, why have you been hiding in library science?" "That's classified, sir. But right now those details don't matter. What matters is stopping those 12 intruders before they reach the Haverton manuscript." Bennett looked at the tactical display, then back at Emma. The library director was faced with an impossible choice. Trust the word of a library specialist who claimed to be a legendary operative, or watch his library get destroyed by overwhelming odds. "Morrison?" Bennett called out. "Is the Haverton secured for emergency protocols?" "Yes, sir. Fully locked and alarmed. Systems optimal. Time to target?" 5 minutes, sir." Bennett made his decision. "Captain Reeves, you're cleared for immediate tactical command." "God help us all if you're not who you say you are." Emma nodded once, feeling the weight of 3 years lifting from her shoulders. "Sir, I'll need clearance for unlimited operational parameters and weapons access. Full authorization." "You've got it, now go." As Emma turned to leave, Sophia grabbed her arm. "Emma, wait. You don't have to do this. You could leave with the others. Stay safe." For a moment, Emma saw her reflection in Sophia's frightened eyes, the quiet administrator who'd found peace in anonymity, who'd built a life around avoiding exactly this kind of situation. Then she looked at the tactical display, at 12 red contacts carrying death toward her library, toward her colleagues, toward everything she'd spent 3 years protecting from the shadows. "Yes," she said quietly. "I do." She ran toward the security armory, toward the weapons, toward a confrontation that would prove whether 3 years of hiding had dulled her skills, or simply stored them like a compressed spring, waiting for the moment when Phantom could finally return to action. Behind her, the security operator's voice cut through the command center noise. 4 minutes to rare books. All contacts maintaining tactical formation. The clock was running. The enemy was coming. And for the first time in 3 years, Emma Reeves was going to do what she was born to do. Emma sprinted across the library's main hall as alarms wailed overhead. 3 minutes until the intruders reached the rare books vault. Barely enough time to reach the security armory, let alone get into position for engagement. Every second counted now. The security center was in chaos. Officers scrambled to prepare defenses while Morrison stood beside the weapons locker, key card in hand. He spotted Emma approaching, and his weathered face showed a mixture of relief and concern. "Phantom," he called out, using her call sign for the first time in 3 years. "Equipment's ready, but are you sure about this? It's been a long time since you ran an operation." "Like riding a bicycle, Chief," Emma replied, grabbing tactical gear from the equipment locker. But even as she spoke, she felt the familiar pre-combat jitters, the heightened awareness, the slight tremor in her hands, the crystal-clear focus that separated great operatives from dead ones. The tactical vest fit perfectly. Muscle memory guided her through the equipment check, comm device, non-lethal weapons, flash grenades, tactical scanner. Each item clicked into place as if she'd done it yesterday instead of 3 years ago. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, but her mind was racing through tactical calculations. 12 armed intruders in a pincer formation. 2 security officers already in position. She could hear their situation reports through the comms. That made it 3 against 12. Still overwhelming odds, but manageable for someone with the right skills and the right strategy. The security armory sat under the bright lights like a sleeping arsenal. Its angular cases absorbed light rather than reflecting it, giving the weapons an otherworldly appearance. Emma approached the locker, then paused. 3 years. 3 years of silence, of hiding, of pretending to be someone she wasn't. Part of her wondered if she could still do this, if the skills that had once made her legendary were still there, or had atrophied from disuse. Morrison appeared at her shoulder, having second thoughts. "No," Emma said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "Just remembering why I stopped operating in the first place." "Politics?" "Politics," she confirmed. "But those 12 intruders out there aren't interested in politics. They're here to steal the Haverton manuscript, and right now I'm the only thing standing in their way." She armed herself and immediately felt like she was coming home. The equipment molded to her body, the comms fell naturally under her control, and the advanced tactical scanner hummed to life as it recognized her biometric signature. The security systems were far more sophisticated than anything she'd used before, but the fundamental principles were the same. "Phantom 1, this is command," crackled through her earpiece. "You are cleared for immediate tactical response. East corridor is clear." "Command, Phantom 1 ready for deployment," Emma replied, then switched to internal communications. "Chief Morrison, final systems check. All green, Phantom. Non-lethal weapons loaded, tactical scanners active, surveillance systems online. Ready to hunt." Emma began the deployment sequence, her hands moving across the equipment with increasing confidence. Tactical scanners powered up with a different sound than conventional security systems. Quieter, more efficient, but with an underlying power that promised incredible performance. Through her tactical visor, she could see the 2 security officers moving into position, Officer Davis and Officer Park. Both excellent responders but facing superior numbers. They'd need every advantage she could give them. "Command, Phantom 1 requesting tactical briefing. Phantom 1, intruders are 3 minutes out, approaching from multiple vectors. You are cleared to engage with all available, non-lethal measures. Good hunting." The corridor stretched ahead, familiar and welcoming. Emma moved forward with practiced precision, feeling the tactical systems respond to her inputs with precision that bordered on telepathic. The quiet library specialist was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Phantom 1 deployed, she reported, moving toward the northwest stairwell, where security had last detected the incoming threats. Moving to intercept primary team, requesting target update. Phantom 1 were tracking 12 contacts in 3 groups, lead group bearing 3rd floor, north wing. Range 100 meters. Flanking groups at 2nd floor east and west wings, similar ranges. Emma studied her tactical display as she climbed toward the 3rd floor. The intruder formation was textbook. Perfect, exactly what she'd expect from professional military operators. But perfection had its own vulnerabilities, predictability being the greatest weakness of any textbook maneuver. Phantom 1, this is Eagle Leader, came a voice she recognized as Officer Davis. We're in position to engage the Eastern Group. What's your tactical assessment? For a moment, Emma hesitated. She'd spent 3 years avoiding leadership, avoiding decisions that could affect other people's lives. But Davis was asking for guidance, and lives depended on getting the tactics right. Eagle Leader, recommend you and Eagle 2 engage the Western Group first. I'll take the lead element head-on. Try to break up their formation. Once they scatter, we can pick them off individually. Copy that, Phantom 1. You taking 4 intruders solo? Affirmative. I have capabilities your officers don't. Trust me on this. As the words left her mouth, Emma realized she was thinking like Phantom again, calculating impossible odds, planning aggressive maneuvers, trusting in her skills and her equipment to overcome superior numbers. The old confidence was returning, 3 years of doubt and caution evaporating in the face of immediate danger. Her scanner showed the first group of intruders 50 meters out and closing fast. 4 operators in diamond formation, probably carrying advanced weapons with engagement ranges longer than anything the conventional security officers could match. But Emma wasn't conventional. Her stealth capabilities meant she could get much closer before being detected, and her advanced tactical systems could engage multiple targets simultaneously. If she played this right, she could neutralize the lead group before they even knew she was there. Phantom 1, first group is 30 meters out and closing. Do you have contact? Negative, Command. Phantom is running silent approach. Emma checked her stealth systems, all green, signature minimal to the enemy operators. She would appear as little more than a shadow until she was close enough to make her first move count, 20 meters. Her hands found the tactical controls, muscle memory guiding her through the deployment sequence. The security systems carried a mix of flash grenades and non-lethal incapacitating weapons, all designed for maximum effectiveness against trained operators. 10 meters. Still no indication that the intruders had detected her approach. They were maintaining their tight formation, probably confident that their superior numbers would overwhelm any resistance. 5 meters. Emma selected her first target, the lead operator, probably the team commander. Take out the leader, disrupt the formation, create chaos that could be exploited. She launched her first flash grenade. The weapon streaked away toward the lead intruder. Its guidance system locked onto the target's heat signature. The explosion of light filled the corridor as the lead operator staggered backward, temporarily blinded. The remaining 3 operators scattered immediately, their tight formation dissolving into individual survival maneuvers. Exactly what Emma had hoped for. Phantom 1, Target 1 neutralized, she reported, already maneuvering for her next engagement. The security systems responded to her inputs like an extension of her will, tracking and predicting the movements of the scattered operators with impossible precision. The second intruder was turning hard left, trying to get behind a bookshelf for cover. But Emma had anticipated the move, flanking right and deploying a non-lethal stunning device where the target would emerge. Unidentified security, stand down immediately, came a transmission on the emergency frequency. We are authorized personnel. Identify yourself immediately, or we will engage. Emma almost laughed. After breaching security with tactical gear, they were demanding identification. Either these operators were following strict rules of engagement, or they were stalling while positioning for a coordinated attack. She chose to assume the latter. Moving with practiced efficiency, Emma came up behind the second intruder and deployed her taser. The electrical charge dropped the operator where he stood, convulsing briefly before falling unconscious. Target 2 neutralized, she reported, already scanning for the remaining operators from the lead group. Phantom 1, this is Eagle Leader. We're engaging the Western group now. They've got better equipment than we expected. Could use some help over here. Emma checked her tactical display. The 2 Eagle officers were outnumbered 4-2 and facing operators with superior weapons. If she didn't intervene quickly, Davis and Park would be overwhelmed, but she still had 2 operators from the lead group to deal with, and the Eastern group of 4 intruders was approaching the rare books vault from another vector. Too many threats, not enough time. This was the moment that separated good operatives from legendary ones. The ability to think 3 moves ahead, while fighting for your life in 3 dimensions. Eagle Leader. Maintain defensive posture. I'm coming to assist. Emma moved toward the Western group, pushing the tactical systems to their performance limits. The equipment responded beautifully, providing enhanced environmental awareness as she climbed toward the engagement zone. Behind her, the 2 remaining operators from the lead group were in pursuit, but they were moving cautiously, uncertain what they were facing. She'd deal with them after helping the Eagles. Phantom 1. We've got multiple hostiles converging. Davis's voice was tight with stress. 4 operators with advanced gear. We're defensive. Emma could see the engagement on her display. 2 friendly officers maneuvering desperately, while enemy operators moved methodically toward their position. The Eagles were good officers, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. She armed her most advanced weapon, an experimental sonic disruptor designed to incapacitate multiple targets simultaneously. The system locked onto 3 of the incoming operators, tracking their positions and calculating optimal deployment. Eagle Leader, continue evasive maneuvers. Phantom engaging hostile group. She fired and watched 3 sonic waves streak toward the incoming threats. The technology was incredible, each wave adjusting its frequency in real time to target the operators' inner ear balance systems. 3 intruders dropped to their knees as vertigo overwhelmed them. The 4th operator continued toward Eagle 2, Officer Park's position. Emma watched in horror as Park tried to evade, his movements becoming increasingly desperate. Eagle 2, hostile still advancing. Break left. Deploy countermeasures. But the enemy operator was too close, too fast. Emma watched helplessly as he closed the final distance toward Park's position. At the last possible second, Park deployed his taser, catching the intruder in mid-leap. Both men went down in a tangle of limbs and equipment. Eagle 2 is down but hostile neutralized, Emma reported. Eagle Leader, you're on your own up there. I'm engaging the Eastern group. Copy that, Phantom 1. Give them hell. Emma moved into a flanking position, approaching the Eastern group from an unexpected angle. 4 operators were repositioning after breaching the library's security doors, probably preparing for the final push toward the rare books vault. They never saw her coming. Her first flash grenade took out the trailing operator before he even knew he was under attack. The second sonic blast incapacitated another, sending him crumpling to the floor. The remaining 2 operators split apart, one heading toward the vault, while the other turned to engage her directly. This is getting personal now, Emma muttered, selecting her taser and maneuvering for close-range engagement. The enemy operator was good, very good. His movements twisted and turned through the library stacks in maneuvers that pushed the limits of both training and equipment. But Emma had 3 years of suppressed instincts guiding her, and the tactical systems had capabilities that no conventional operator could match. The confrontation lasted less than 2 minutes. When it ended, another enemy operator was lying unconscious, while Emma moved back toward the vault. Phantom 1, this is command. Outstanding work out there. Current count shows 5 operators neutralized, 2 incapacitated and contained. The Eastern group appears to be retreating. Emma checked her tactical display. The remaining enemy operators were indeed withdrawing, apparently deciding that the cost of continuing the attack was too high. The library was safe. The Haverton manuscript was secure. The immediate threat was over. But as the adrenaline began to fade, Emma realized that everything had changed. She was no longer the quiet library specialist, who hid in special collections. She was Phantom again, the operative who'd just single-handedly broken up a coordinated attack by superior numbers. There would be no going back to anonymity now. Too many people had seen what she could do. Too many questions would be asked. The carefully constructed life she'd built over 3 years was about to crumble. Phantom 1, you're cleared to return to command. And, Phantom. The security controller's voice carried a note of awe. Welcome back. As Emma made her way toward the security center, she caught sight of her reflection in a glass display case. For the first time in 3 years, she recognized the person looking back at her. The warrior had returned. Emma arrived at the security center to a reception unlike anything she'd seen in her 3 years at Westfield. Security officers, library staff, administrative personnel, and senior officials had gathered in the command room, all waiting to see the operative who'd just accomplished the impossible. As she entered the room, Emma could see Dr. Bennett standing with the National Security Advisor, the visiting official whose assessment had started this whole crisis. Both men looked stunned, as if they couldn't quite believe what they'd witnessed. She removed her tactical gear and stood in the doorway for a moment, gathering herself. The security systems powered down around her with soft electronic chirps, but the silence felt deafening after the chaos of tactical engagement. In less than an hour, she'd neutralized 5 enemy operators and saved the library from a coordinated attack. She'd also destroyed 3 years of carefully maintained anonymity. Suddenly, she was surrounded by noise and activity. Security personnel swarmed around her, checking for injuries and beginning debriefing procedures. But all eyes were on Emma as she stood quietly in the center of the storm. Captain Reeves, the National Security Advisor, approached first, his expression unreadable. That was the most impressive display of tactical expertise I've seen in 20 years of service. Thank you, sir, Emma replied, adjusting her disheveled appearance. Her hair had fallen loose around her shoulders, and she realized how different she must look from the quiet administrator who'd started the day in special collections. 5 neutralized targets against 12 operators, he continued, in an environment you'd never defended before. Either you're the luckiest security specialist alive, or you're considerably more experienced than your personnel file suggests. Behind him, she could see familiar faces in the crowd. Sophia stood near the doorway, her expression mixing pride and concern. Morrison was grinning broadly, clearly vindicated in his assessment of her abilities. Other personnel she'd worked with for years stared at her like they were seeing a ghost, which in a way they were. Sir, I'm qualified for all assigned duties, Emma said carefully. I'm sure you are, but I think it's time we had a conversation about exactly what those qualifications include. He gestured toward the library director's office. Dr. Bennett, I want Captain Reeves in your office in 30 minutes. Full debrief, complete personnel review, and I want answers to some very specific questions. As the crowd began to disperse, Emma found herself walking back toward the administrative offices with a strange mixture of relief and dread. The secret was out. There was no hiding anymore, but she wasn't sure she was ready for the scrutiny that was coming. Sophia caught up with her outside the main office. Emma, that was incredible. I mean, I knew you were more than you seemed, but that was something else. She shook her head in amazement. 5 operators against those odds. I got lucky, Emma said automatically. Luck had nothing to do with it, and you know it. Sophia's voice was serious now. You moved like someone who'd been doing it her whole life. You made tactical decisions that saved lives. You were magnificent out there. The praise made Emma uncomfortable. She'd spent 3 years avoiding recognition, avoiding attention, avoiding exactly this kind of conversation. Sophia, I need to get ready for the debrief. The National Security Advisor is going to want answers I'm not sure I can give. Then maybe it's time to stop hiding, Sophia said gently. Whatever happened 3 years ago, whatever made you disappear into library science, it's over now. You can't pretend to be someone you're not anymore. Emma stopped walking and looked at her friend. What if who I really am is someone I don't want to be? What if who you really are is someone the world needs? 30 minutes later, Emma sat in Dr. Bennett's office, facing a panel that included Bennett, the National Security Advisor, and Dr. Patricia Whitman, the Deputy Library Director who'd arrived during the crisis. The room felt like a tribunal, with 3 senior officials studying her like a specimen under a microscope. "Captain Reeves," the National Security Advisor began, "let's start with the basics. Your personnel file shows 3 years of exemplary service in library science, with no prior tactical assignments. Yet today you neutralized armed intruders with the skill of a veteran operative. Care to explain this discrepancy?" Emma had prepared for this moment, but sitting here under their collective gaze, she felt exposed and vulnerable. "Sir, my previous assignments are classified. I have sufficient clearance for any classification level," he replied, "and I've already made some preliminary inquiries. Your service record prior to Westfield University is heavily redacted, with most details sealed under national security protocols." Dr. Whitman leaned forward. "Captain, we're not here to compromise operational security, but we need to understand who you are and why you've been hiding among our administrative staff." Bennett spoke up. "Sir, with respect, does it matter? She saved the manuscript today. 5 confirmed neutralizations, no friendly casualties. Mission accomplished." "It matters," the advisor said firmly, "because I don't like mysteries in my security structure. And because someone with Captain Reeves's obvious capabilities has been wasting away in a library cubicle for 3 years. That suggests either gross mismanagement of personnel, or there's a story we need to understand." Emma realized she was at a crossroads. She could maintain her cover, claim the classification excuse, and hope they'd let it drop. Or she could tell the truth and face whatever consequences came with it. She chose the truth. "Sir, my name is Captain Emma Reeves, call sign Phantom. I served as a tactical operative from 2010 to 2019, with deployments in Afghanistan, Syria, and Eastern Europe. Total field operations, 237. High-value target neutralizations, 42 confirmed." The silence in the room was complete. Even the National Security Advisor, who'd expected something significant, looked stunned by the numbers. "Phantom," Dr. Whitman whispered. "You're the operative from the Budapest incident." Emma nodded slowly. The Budapest incident. The mission that had ended her field career and started her 3-year exile in administrative purgatory. "What happened?" the advisor asked quietly. Emma took a deep breath, preparing to revisit the worst day of her life. March 15, 2019. I was leading a 4-person team in Hungary. Routine surveillance mission. We intercepted unidentified operatives that turned out to be Russian intelligence officers testing NATO response times. Rules of engagement were ambiguous. They weren't actively hostile, but they were violating diplomatic protocols. She paused, remembering the weight of split-second decisions made in the field. "I made the call to intercept and redirect them out. No force used, no international incident. Mission accomplished, but the Russian government complained through diplomatic channels, claiming we'd acted aggressively. Politics got involved. Questions were asked about my judgment, my decision-making process, my adherence to rules of engagement." "That sounds like exactly what a team leader should have done," Bennett said. The review board agreed. "I was cleared of any wrongdoing, but the incident had generated publicity, congressional questions, diplomatic tensions. The agency needed someone to blame, and I was convenient." Emma's voice hardened with old anger. "They couldn't court-martial me because I'd followed orders. They couldn't discharge me because my record was spotless. So they transferred me to administrative duties and buried me where I couldn't cause any more diplomatic embarrassments." The National Security Advisor studied her face. "And you accepted that?" "I was tired of fighting, sir. Tired of politics. Tired of having my every decision second-guessed by people who'd never been in the field. Library science seemed like a place where I could serve quietly and avoid the spotlight." "For 3 years, Dr. Whitman said." "You've been hiding for 3 years?" "Yes, ma'am." "What a waste," the advisor said, shaking his head. "Captain, do you have any idea how many operations with your experience and skills the nation has been desperately short of? How many missions could have used someone with your capabilities?" "I served where I was assigned, sir." "You served where you were hidden," he corrected. "There's a difference." He looked at the other officials. "I think we've heard enough. Captain Reeves, you're hereby transferred to active operational status, effective immediately. Emma felt the world shift around her. You've proven today that 3 years of paperwork haven't dulled your skills. The nation needs operatives like you, especially with classified programs like the Haverton Research entering operational testing. The advisor smiled slightly. Consider this your official return to the profession you never should have left. Sir, I'm not sure I want to return to operational status. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. The advisor's expression hardened. Captain, that wasn't a request. It was an order. You're too valuable an asset to waste in library science, and today's action has made it impossible to maintain your anonymity anyway. Emma realized he was right. The quiet administrator was gone forever, destroyed by 30 minutes of tactical engagement and 5 neutralized threats. There was no going back to special collections, no returning to the safe anonymity she'd built over 3 years. She was phantom again, whether she wanted to be or not. Understood, sir, she said finally. Good. Report to tactical operations tomorrow morning. You'll be leading the Haverton security program. The advisor stood, signaling the end of the meeting. And Captain, thank you for reminding us why we need specialists like you. As Emma left the office, she felt like she was walking into a new life, or perhaps returning to an old one she'd never really left. The warrior was back. The administrator was gone, and there was no telling what came next. But for the first time in 3 years, she was curious to find out. 3 days after the attack, Emma reported to tactical operations at 6 a.m., wearing tactical gear instead of her administrative uniform for the first time in 3 years. The building buzzed with activity as officers prepared for morning patrols, but conversations stopped when she entered. Word had spread quickly through the security community. Phantom was back. Officer Derek Davis approached first, still slightly stunned by recent events. Ma'am, I wanted to thank you for what you did out there. Without your intervention, we wouldn't have survived that engagement. You did well, officer. Both you and Officer Park showed excellent tactical awareness under pressure. Permission to speak freely, ma'am? Emma nodded. Why didn't you tell us? 3 years you've been scheduling our patrols, managing our rosters, and we never knew we were working with a legend. It was a fair question, one she'd been asking herself since the advisor's order. Because legends are usually dead, officer. I prefer being alive and anonymous. But as she spoke the words, Emma realized they were no longer true. The anonymous life was over, and she was slowly discovering that she didn't miss it as much as she'd expected. Her new office was in the Tactical Operations Center, with windows overlooking the campus instead of a cubicle in special collections. The desk held tactical manuals on the Haverton security program, mission planning software, and operational reports instead of library schedules. At 8 a.m., she was called to the weekly security briefing, not to take notes in the back row, but to sit at the front table with the other senior officers. The change in perspective was disorienting after 3 years of invisibility. Ladies and gentlemen, announced Dr. Bennett, I want to introduce our new Haverton Security Program Commander, Captain Emma Reeves. Most of you know her as the library specialist, who's been scheduling your patrols for the past 3 years. What you didn't know is that she's also the operative who saved this library 3 days ago. The reaction was immediate. Applause, nods of respect, and more than a few expressions of amazement. Emma stood awkwardly, unused to being the center of attention. Thank you, she said when the noise died down. I look forward to working with all of you in a new capacity. The Haverton program represents a critical national security asset, and I intend to make sure we develop tactics and procedures that will keep our personnel safe and our mission successful. After the briefing, Emma was approached by Dr. Patricia Whitman, who'd remained on campus to oversee the investigation into the attack. Captain, walk with me, Whitman said, leading Emma outside toward the library. I've been reviewing the incident reports from the attack, and I have some concerns I'd like to discuss. They stopped near the entrance, where increased security personnel stood guard. The library looked peaceful in the morning light, giving no indication of the violence that had erupted there days before. The attack was too well coordinated to be random, Whitman continued. 12 operators, professional tactical movements, advanced equipment capabilities. Someone with significant resources and military training planned this operation. Emma had reached the same conclusion, but hadn't expected senior administration to be so direct about it. Do we know who was responsible? Intelligence is still analyzing the captured equipment, but preliminary assessment suggests the operators were contracted mercenaries with military-grade weapons and tactical systems. That narrows the list of potential employers considerably. A foreign government, possibly, or a well-funded terrorist organization, or— Whitman paused, studying Emma's face. A private corporation with a vested interest in seeing the Haverton research fail. The implication hit Emma like a physical blow. You think this was corporate espionage? I think someone wanted to test our defenses and capabilities. They sent 12 operators expecting to overwhelm our response, document our security measures, and potentially capture or destroy the Haverton manuscript. Whitman smiled grimly. What they didn't expect was you. As they spoke, a black sedan pulled up near the library. 2 men in expensive suits got out, followed by a woman in professional attire whom Emma didn't recognize. And speaking of unexpected developments, Whitman muttered, here comes the State Department. The woman approached them with the confident stride of someone accustomed to command. Her expression suggested she was not happy to be at Westfield. Dr. Whitman, she said curtly. I'm Victoria Cross, State Department Special Envoy. I'm here about the library incident and Captain Reeves's unauthorized tactical engagement. Emma felt her stomach drop. This was what she'd been afraid of, the inevitable review. The questions about her actions, the possibility that politics would once again destroy her career. Ms. Cross, Whitman replied smoothly. I'm not aware of any unauthorized engagements. Captain Reeves was cleared for emergency tactical operations by Campus Command during a direct attack on this facility. Captain Reeves is a library specialist with no recent tactical training or operational certification, Cross responded. Her engagement with foreign nationals violated multiple protocols and regulations. Her engagement saved this library and prevented the loss of multiple personnel and irreplaceable historical documents. Whitman shot back. I'd say that trumps protocols. Cross turned to Emma, her expression cold and evaluating. Captain Reeves, you've caused considerable disruption in Washington. Questions are being asked about how a library specialist obtained clearance for classified operations, why your background wasn't properly vetted, and whether your actions constitute gross insubordination. Emma recognized the tone. It was the same bureaucratic hostility she'd faced 3 years ago after the Budapest incident. The same people who cared more about procedures than results, more about politics than protecting American lives. Ms. Cross, Emma said carefully, I acted under emergency authority to defend this facility against hostile intruders. My actions were within my authorized responsibilities as a qualified tactical operative. Qualified according to whom? Your operational status should have been revoked years ago. Your presence in a tactical engagement represents a failure of command oversight and personnel management. Miss Cross, interrupted a new voice. Everyone turned to see the National Security Advisor approaching from the direction of campus administration. His expression was thunderous, and Emma could tell he'd heard enough of the conversation to be thoroughly annoyed. Captain Reeves's actions 3 days ago prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss of personnel and irreplaceable historical assets. She engaged 12 hostile operators with limited resources and neutralized 5 of them without suffering any friendly casualties. That's not insubordination. That's exactly what we train our operatives to do. Cross's expression didn't change. I understand your desire to defend your personnel, but Captain Reeves's background raises serious questions about security protocols and command oversight. The Haverton program is too important to risk on unauthorized personnel. Unauthorized personnel? The advisor's voice rose dangerously. Captain Reeves has more field experience than any operative currently in the program. Her security clearances are valid, her qualifications are current. And her performance 3 days ago was flawless. Her performance was lucky. Cross snapped. And luck isn't a qualification for classified operations. That was the moment Emma realized she was tired of defending herself to bureaucrats who'd never been in the field. Never made life-or-death decisions under pressure. Never understood the difference between protocol and survival. Miss Cross, she said quietly. With respect, luck had nothing to do with it. Cross turned back to her, eyebrows raised at the interruption. I engaged 12 operators because they posed a direct threat to this facility and the personnel in it. I used my training, my experience, and my tactical capabilities to neutralize that threat as efficiently as possible. If you consider that insubordination, then I submit that your definition of national service is fundamentally flawed. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Cross stared at Emma with obvious displeasure. "Captain, your attitude confirms my assessment that you're unsuitable for continued government service. I'm recommending immediate review of your status and possible disciplinary action." "On what grounds?" the advisor demanded. "Insubordination, violation of tactical protocols, unauthorized use of classified equipment, and failure to follow proper chain of command during emergency operations." Emma felt the familiar weight of bureaucratic persecution, the same political machinery that had destroyed her career 3 years ago. But this time, something was different. This time, she wasn't alone. "Miss Cross," said Dr. Whitman, "I think you're forgetting something important, which is that Captain Reeves's actions were recorded by multiple campus sensors, security systems, and tactical cameras. We have complete documentation of the engagement, including intruder positions, weapons deployments, and tactical decisions. Would you like to review that footage before making accusations about her performance?" Cross hesitated, apparently not expecting the level of documentation available. "Furthermore," Whitman continued, "the preliminary investigation shows that the attacking operators were using military-grade weapons and electronic warfare systems. This wasn't a random crime. It was a coordinated assault by professionally trained operatives using advanced equipment. Captain Reeves didn't just save the library. She may have prevented a significant national security breach." The National Security Advisor stepped forward. "Miss Cross, I'm going to make this simple. Captain Reeves is under my authority, operating in my jurisdiction, defending my assets. Her actions were authorized, appropriate, and successful. If you want to file complaints about her performance, you're welcome to do so, but she's staying on operational status, and she's remaining as commander of the Haverton program." Cross looked around at the 3 officials facing her, clearly realizing she was outnumbered. "This isn't over," she said finally. "There will be an investigation, and there will be consequences." As she turned to leave, Emma called out, "Miss Cross." Cross stopped, looking back with obvious irritation. "3 years ago, I let people like you destroy my career because I was tired of fighting political battles. I won't make that mistake again." Emma's voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "If you want to come after me, bring everything you have, because I'm not hiding anymore." The confrontation was over, but Emma knew it was just the beginning. The bureaucratic machinery was in motion, and there would be investigations, hearings, and political maneuvering. But for the first time in 3 years, she was ready for the fight. As Cross's sedan disappeared down the campus drive, the National Security Advisor clapped Emma on the shoulder. "Welcome back to the real world, Captain. Hope you're ready for what comes next." Emma looked up at the morning sky where a formation of campus security drones was patrolling against the blue horizon. "Sir, I've been ready for 3 years. I just didn't know it yet." 6 months later, Captain Emma Reeves stood in the briefing room at the National Security Academy, addressing a room full of tactical operatives, intelligence analysts, and senior officials. The Haverton program had been moved to the academy after the attack on Westfield, and Emma had been promoted to major and given command of the entire tactical division. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, clicking to the next slide in her presentation, "the Haverton security protocols have exceeded all performance expectations in operational testing. We've completed over 200 field simulations with 0 security breaches and perfect mission success rates. The program is ready for full-scale implementation." The National Security Advisor, now her direct superior at the academy, nodded approvingly from the front row. Beside him sat Dr. Whitman and several other senior officials who'd supported Emma through the political storm that followed the Westfield incident. The investigation into Victoria Cross's accusations had lasted 4 months and concluded with complete vindication of Emma's actions. The attacking operators had indeed been traced to a foreign intelligence operation designed to test American defensive capabilities and capture the Haverton research. Emma's decisive response had not only saved the library, but prevented a significant intelligence breach. Cross herself had been quietly reassigned to a desk job in Washington after it was discovered that her opposition to Emma was based on incomplete information and political pressure from private corporations who viewed the Haverton research as a threat to their existing programs. The tactical innovations developed during this program will revolutionize security doctrine, Emma continued. The Haverton-inspired integration of historical military strategy, advanced tactics, and neural response systems creates capabilities that no existing security program can match. In the audience, she spotted several familiar faces. Sophia Martinez had transferred to the academy as well, now serving as Emma's deputy program manager. Her administrative skills and understanding of Emma's background made her invaluable in managing the complex logistics of tactical operations. Chief Morrison had also requested transfer to the program, bringing his expertise in maintaining cutting-edge systems. His respect for Emma's abilities had only grown as he watched her handle both the technical challenges of field operations and the political pressures of program management. The program has also validated new training methodologies, Emma said, advancing to the final slides. We've proven that experienced field operatives can rapidly adapt to revolutionary tactical designs when proper training protocols are followed. The strategic integration technology, once considered too complex for operational use, has become intuitive for operators with the right background. After the briefing, Emma walked outside to the academy training field where a new tactical team was practicing maneuvers in the California sun. The operators moved with precision and confidence, incorporating lessons from the ancient Haverton manuscript into modern security protocols. "Impressive presentation," said a voice behind her. Emma turned to see a young lieutenant approaching. Lisa Chun, one of the newest tactical officers assigned to the program. "Thank you, Lieutenant. How are you adapting to the Haverton systems?" "It's incredible, ma'am. The tactical integration feels like the historical knowledge is flowing directly into modern application. I've never experienced anything like it." Chun was part of the new generation of operators being trained on the Haverton protocols. Younger officers who would take the program into full operational status. Watching them learn and grow reminded Emma why she'd fought to return to active status. "Ma'am," Chun continued, "can I ask you something personal?" Emma nodded. "The other officers talk about what happened at Westfield, about how you were hiding in library science for 3 years. Why did you do that? Why give up fieldwork when you were so good at it?" It was a question Emma had been asked many times over the past 6 months, and her answer had evolved as she'd come to understand her own motivations better. "Because sometimes, Lieutenant, we make choices based on fear instead of courage. I was afraid of making mistakes, afraid of political consequences, afraid of being responsible for other people's lives." Emma looked up at the sky where tactical drones traced patterns against the blue horizon. "But fear is a poor foundation for a career. Eventually, circumstances force you to remember who you really are." "And who are you really, ma'am?" Emma smiled, remembering a similar conversation with Sophia months ago. "I'm a protector, Lieutenant. Everything else is just details." That evening, Emma sat in her quarters, writing her weekly report to National Security Headquarters. The Haverton program was ahead of schedule and under budget, with the first operational team expected to achieve initial operating capability within 18 months. Her personal evaluation ratings were the highest she'd received in her entire career. But the real measure of success wasn't in efficiency reports or performance metrics. It was in the knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The caller ID showed Sophia's number. "Major Reeves," she answered. "Very formal," Sophia laughed. "I just wanted to let you know that the final implementation contracts were signed today. Congratulations. The Haverton Protocol is officially entering operational service. It's been a team effort. None of this would have been possible without the support of everyone involved, including a certain library specialist who turned out to be a legendary operative." Emma laughed. "Especially her. She taught me that sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight, but eventually you have to stop hiding and start living." After hanging up, Emma walked outside to watch the sunset over the academy grounds. In the distance, she could see tactical teams practicing night operations, their movements precise and purposeful against the darkening sky. 3 years ago, she'd thought her field career was over, destroyed by politics and bureaucracy. She'd hidden herself in administrative work, convinced that anonymity was safer than recognition, that paperwork was preferable to action, that library science was preferable to living with purpose. But life had a way of revealing truth even when you tried to bury it. The attack on Westfield had forced her to choose between safety and duty, between hiding and fighting, between who she'd become and who she'd always been. She'd chosen to fight, and in doing so had rediscovered not just her skills as an operative, but her purpose as a leader. The Haverton program wasn't just about developing new security protocols. It was about proving that experience and expertise could overcome political obstacles. That courage was more important than caution, that sometimes the quiet ones had the most to offer. A formation of tactical officers passed by, their movements barely audible thanks to advanced stealth training. Emma watched them disappear into the night, carrying the legacy of the Haverton manuscript toward operations she might never know about. But that was the point, wasn't it? She'd done her part by developing the program, proving the protocols, and training the next generation of protectors. They would carry on the mission while she moved on to whatever challenge came next. Her phone buzzed with a text message from the National Security Advisor. New specialized program starting next month. Interested in commanding a task force of elite operators? The challenge might appeal to you. Emma smiled and typed back, "Send me the operational parameters. If it protects, I can lead it." Some people were born to push papers. Others were born to push the boundaries of what was possible in the field, to test the limits of training and tactics, to stand between their nation and those who would do it harm. Major Emma Reeves, call sign Phantom, had finally remembered which category she belonged in. As she walked back toward the training facility, Emma allowed herself one last look at the Haverton program that had started it all, the ancient manuscript that had given her back her identity, her purpose, and her future. 3 years of hiding were over. The warrior was home, and the mission was calling. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.